Welcome to Strain on the Game, the podcast that reveals what it really takes to keep elite footballers performing at the highest level. I'm Stephen Warnock, former Premier League player, joined by physical performance expert Adrian Lamb. From training ground truths to the financial impact of fitness, we discuss the often overlooked challenges behind the beautiful game. It's international break, the point in the season where momentum stalls, players fly thousands of miles, and clubs pray their stars come back in one piece. This week, we're unpacking the hidden cost of international duty, fatigue, injuries, and the impact it has when the Premier League restarts. Lammy, how have you been? What have you been up to? Have you been busy?
I've had a very un-Adrian Lamb-like weekend, to be fair.
Oh, go on.
Yeah, partly through the power of this podcast as well. So I met up with a really good old friend of mine, Steve Baharrell, who I worked with at Newcastle United Academy.
Oh, okay.
God knows how many years ago.
Is this another mate stateside, is it? You've got a few of these popping up.
No. So what happened was he reached out through the power of the podcast, Strain on the Game, bringing people together since 2025.
A new side of the podcast.
Well, it was one of those ones. He was like, "Oh, he's still alive." And then obviously he found out I lived in LA, and there was a group of them that were coming out for, I think there was 12 of them had the 50th birthdays all this year, and they were coming to Vegas, which it's a 40-minute
far
flight.
from you.
So very, very kindly, Steve invited me to come over for a weekend, and I thought it would be rude to say no. So
Yeah,
went to Vegas just for a night. Brilliant catching up. Steve is actually he's the CEO of the Newcastle United Foundation, so the charitable arm of Newcastle United.
Oh, brilliant! Yeah,
And he was describing all the work they do, not just in the Northeast actually, but around the world, using the power of football as a vehicle to improve people's lives, and the work they do around children, kids from underprivileged backgrounds and who've had challenging upbringings, and around mental health, and all of the programs that Steve and his team have got in place there. Fantastic. Really, really, really good. And then flew back on the Sunday, and Sunday night went to see Oasis concert at the Pasadena Rose Bowl. So I might be a little bit croaky this morning.
Carlsberg did weekends.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
You've just nailed it, haven't you?
So I just need a holiday to get over my holiday. Yeah,
Were they any good or were they crap?
Unbelievable. Unbelievable from start to finish. Just what a show. What a show. I mean, this may or may not surprise you, I don't know, but that is the third concert that I've been to in my entire life. Only the third.
What's up with you? Go on, who the other two?
This will not surprise you. What does the man who's had the same breakfast for the past 25 years choose to go to a concert? I went to Oasis in 1997 and I went to Oasis in 2005. So, yeah.
20 years on, eh?
I'm just trying to keep the run going, you know.
Wow.
I don't like change.
I listened to them. What was it now? There was a fight out in Riyadh, wasn't there? Or something like that. I think it was an Anthony Joshua fight. And I was listening to the radio and I was listening to them and I was like, oh my God. It was like the start of, I think Liam was singing on his own. I thought, he sounds absolutely horrific. But in all intents and purposes, from everyone I've spoke to who's been to the concert, said it's completely different. He's like got himself together. His voice is in great condition. And it's a hell of a show.
Yeah, great show. Great show. It was fantastic. What about yourself? I saw through the medium of social media that you had a very enjoyable weekend as well.
Yeah, been to Spain for a wedding, which was brilliant. So thank you to Harry and Rachel, if you're listening, which I don't know whether they listen or not. Didn't ask them at the wedding. But yeah, it was absolutely brilliant. Managed to go for a couple of runs as well along the way. I'm trying to do 5K a day in September, which is trying to lose weight as well. As you might remember on one of our previous podcasts, I said I weighed in quite heavy. So I'm trying to get myself fit. However, did let myself go a little bit this weekend, and I've got like a nice spot on my chin to show for it where I'm a bit run down. It's not a baked bean. It's not something that's run off my dinner. It is a spot. Yeah. So
Yeah, how's the running going, mate? How are you? Are your times coming down? Are you feeling better? Are
times are
you?
flying down, but the weight's not.
I
Honestly,
told you. I told you
I'm getting
can't.
heavier.
You can't outrun a bad diet.
I know.
Do you?
No,
Are
do
you?
you know what? It's not that. It's just when I'm running, I need more food to carb or to load up, and I'm just at that phase at the moment where I'm heavy, but I'm actually feeling fitter and stronger. But I've got the bug again. I've got the
Brilliant.
bug. Even when we were away, 2 days on the bounce, it was right. Get up out of bed, go for a 5K. Felt a lot better for it. But yeah, the times are dropping, mate. I think I
Brilliant.
did me last one in 22:37, like something like that, which is into
Decent.
wind on the beach. I'll take that. That's good
What's
enough
that
for
like?
now.
4.5 minute K, something like that.
Yeah, roughly. Yeah.
Decent. Decent.
Happy.
We'll have you under 20 minutes in no time.
Oh,
When I
by the
say,
end of the month, I'll be doing under 20. Yeah.
yeah,
I won't bet me. I did a, I don't know if I ever told you this. I did one in the, on a run on a treadmill, and my record was 15 minutes and 27 seconds, something around that. I've got it on me. I've got it on my phone somewhere. And I
that
just,
is that's exceptional, by the way.
yeah, on a treadmill, nothing, just set it. And do you know what the problem was? The treadmill wasn't fast enough. It was on max speed. So
the,
I was like,
the Chuck Norris of treadmill runners. Send more treadmills. We haven't got any more treadmills.
give me a quicker treadmill. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
get this treadmill uphill. It's not. Oh, brilliant! Love that.
yeah. So there you go. Anyway, right, let's get into it.
Yeah,
International break.
yeah,
Ah, it's happened already. So we talked a couple of weeks ago about players getting injured and the injuries within the first sort of 3 games of the Premier League season.
yeah.
International break, and one of the teams we talked about, which was Paris Saint-Germain on the Club World Cup episode, Dembele pulled his hamstring, out for a period of time. Then we've also got Desiree Doué, Paris Saint-Germain, also pulled his calf, out for a period of time. What is going on, Lammy?
Yeah, I mean, I've worked both sides of this equation. So I've worked for a number of Premier League clubs, but I also work for a national team as well.
Yeah.
So I've seen both sides of that equation, and from experience, I can tell you that international breaks are a pain in the ass.
What, both sides or just
Both
one?
sides. Both sides. From the
Go on,
club
give us
side.
from the club sides, yeah.
Well, from the club, I mean, there's similarities between both, but from the club side, you've got your players disappear. You can't control the workload when you've carefully controlled the workload to that point. You can't control the workload when they go away. In many cases, you've got no idea what they're doing while they're away because there are massive communication gaps with the whatever national team they've gone to. Some relationships are really, really good, and you get communication. You get that
Yeah.
flow of information. Honestly, it's rare. They go all over the place, so you can't control that. Sometimes you've got players who are called up who have no business being called up.
Why did you look at me then?
No, not in that sense. Like, how's he got a call up? They might have come back from injury with us. They might have only been training with us for a couple of weeks, and then they disappear for the national team.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's right. But the national teams have got the right to take them and assess them. But the amount of advanced planning and the amount of detailed communication that you need to have, both with the whatever the national team is that the players go into, but also internally, because football clubs are massive organizations, and there's so much information that we want to try and you control the controllables, right? So you try and give the national team as much information as you can around things like the players. This is what his activation looks like before training, and he does this every day. This is what his recovery looks like after games, and this is what he drinks. This is what his S&C program looks like, and this is what his, especially if there's a thread of injury prevention in there. So, that is something that we will send to the national team. I'll always send it with the player as well.
Right.
and I'll
So,
always
so
have
what's your line of communication then to someone? I mean,
well,
how far in advance would you know a player's getting called up, or would you just know as the player's being called up as well? And
yeah, I
then
mean,
what's your port of or your contact, if you like?
right, so we try to close communication gaps internally within the club. And for that reason, there's usually one person who's designated as the lead point of contact with all of the national teams. So rather than having a contact through medical, sports science, scouting, coaching, that person is usually the player liaison officer.
Okay.
And the player liaison officer. So we will get notice that a player is going to be called up, usually the 2 days, maybe 3 days before the squad is announced,
Okay.
that this player is on standby, essentially. This player is going to be called up. The player liaison officer will then, it's such a big planning operation. There's actually a policy document in place so that everybody knows what they need to do. So I need to give the previous 4 weeks of GPS data, training, and playing. I need to give the player's performance profile.
Got you.
I need to give details in and around the training programs, the nutrition, the supplementation, all of those different things. Rather than me send that directly to the club, from the club to the national team, it'll all go to the player liaison officer or whoever the designated point of contact is. Might
Yeah.
be the club secretary, but usually the player liaison officer. And they'll coordinate all of that. What might sit outside of that is the medical stuff, because obviously there's issues around confidentiality built around medical data. So the medical team might have a direct line to the national team's medical team. But usually, to make sure that no information falls through the gaps, we'll send all of that stuff to the player liaison officer. It gets sent to the national team. They will then produce a spreadsheet which will sit on the club database or the athlete management system or whatever internal communication method clubs are using, with a spreadsheet of which players have been called up, when they need to report, where the training camps are, where the games are, flight information around the games.
Yeah.
So there will be certain players that I'll flag up to. We need to build some support in and around their flight.
Mhm.
So it could be compression garments, flight socks, nutrition around flight, because we spoke on a previous podcast, didn't we, about the impact that prolonged flights can have. The most important part on that, the kickoff times, and that is in UK time, so we can see what time they're kicking off. We can judge everything on our local time, really.
Okay.
So you don't have that. Hang on a second, they're playing in Georgia. It's an 8:45 kickoff. What time's that in England? So,
Yeah.
you know, get onto your phone and try to work. That's all in UK times. The most important one is then their agreed return to the training ground, when they're going to report back. And at that point, that's when we have staff in place where we assess them medically, have
Yeah.
a look at them medically. I'll assess them, or the sports science staff will assess them based on fatigue markers. We will have masseurs in place. We may give them a recovery session depending on when they've come back in. But then judging that certain players will have played all of the minutes,
Yeah.
certain players will have played some players won't have played any. So those players might need a little bit of a top up before we go into training. And then it's that quick turnaround before the game at the weekend. So logistically, the advanced planning starts taking place weeks earlier. You kind of know which your international players are going to
Yeah.
be.
Yeah. You
So
have a rough idea.
you put those structures in place, and like I said, the policy document is in place. So it's just you press go on the machine, and the machine kind of takes care of itself. But yeah, the logistics, the advanced planning, the communication, the level of communication. Graham Souness used to have a good analogy. He was kind of like, It's like you've got to.
Where was this at? Where
This
did
is Newcastle, but I've heard him use similar sort of when he in his media career,
yeah.
post sort of his managerial career, he's used a similar analogy. Um, he uses the analogy of a car, and he's like, you own a car, and you take care of it, you wash it, and you service it, you change the oil, you make sure it's running, you keep it topped up with petrol, you only drive it a certain speed, you drive it carefully, you put it in the garage at night. And it's like you basically give this car for 2 weeks to somebody you don't know, and you've no idea what they're doing with it. And when it comes back, the windscreen's cracked, it's dirty, there's McDonald's wrappers in the back because, the steering's all off, there's no petrol in the tank, the radiator's leaking. It can be like that. I think, and that's always a point of friction, isn't it? Between clubs and international teams. I think
Yeah.
that those relationships have got a lot better for a multitude of reasons. I think international teams are working a lot harder to improve their relationships with clubs, and that flow of information has to go two ways. I've described how all of the data, the player-related data, flows from the clubs to the national teams, because it's in our interests that the international teams know that, because you hope that they've got staff who are on the same page. We talked about Isak the other week, didn't we? And
Yeah.
how John Dahl Thomason managed him with Sweden. He got 25 minutes in the second game, didn't he?
Yeah.
So, that's all part of relationship building and trust.
So do you think, is there an element now with, I'm thinking more from the lines of technology and the way things are moving forward, where would you get an open communication from, say, a national team? Let's just pick England, for instance. Would you be able to look at the data of your players playing for that national team and not any other players? Would you get that fed back to you or not?
Yeah, you just get your own players. You don't get any
Yeah,
sort
you
of
wouldn't be able
players
to for
from
data
abroad.
protection,
But
would you? But
yeah, with England you do. You do. Um, you get a kind of a description of what the aims and objectives of the training session were. You get the physical outputs, and previously that could be quite patchy because it was based on individuals downloading the GPS and putting that onto a spreadsheet and sending it, and it was quite a bit of heavy lifting for an
yeah,
individual within that. Now we have these APIs which automatically download the data, automatically drag it onto a spreadsheet, and automatically send it. So it's all as technologies developed, you're quite right. The ability for that data, by taking the workload away from individuals who have got, these camps are very, very busy. There's a lot of work to them. So the last thing on the list is send the data to the clubs. Now that's all pretty much automated. And also, in terms of the recovery, players have got their own whoops now,
yeah.
and they will. So we'll have more information around recovery than we used to have, and we get a
Sammy,
lot.
I'm just going to drop in on that. I am officially now a Whoop member.
Go on, I love that.
Yeah, I got one a couple of weeks ago or a week
Brilliant.
ago.
I'm going to
Obsessed.
join. I'm going to jump on the bandwagon.
Yeah,
I'm going to jump on the bandwagon. So
very
my
good.
wearables I just use GPS watches when I go running and what have you. But there are massive gaps in my sleep monitoring data and things like that, which I'm really
Yeah,
interested in. Um, I, I'm going to join you. I'm going to strain on the game.
yeah.
Strain on the
With Whoop.
game.
Yeah. No,
Definitely. Yeah.
I was. It's interesting when you talk about the stats and the feedback for players, and this is something I've only worn for a week or so now, but actually understanding your sleep pattern, and it almost pushes you to do it.
Yeah.
So you realize how much you are deprived of sleep, how much you are down on your sleep, the quality of the sleep. Um, I'm not a great sleeper, but I've been actually surprised as to some of the results I've had have
Right.
been more positive than I actually thought. Sometimes you wake up and you think, God, I've been awake for hours. Like
Yeah.
last night, I literally felt like I was lying in my bed, wide awake, like looking at the ceiling for about 3 hours. It was 23 minutes.
Right.
And that's
Oh,
overall. So it might have even been less than that, but just
oh,
that feeling. So
fun.
what players are getting now, and that
Yeah,
ability to wear them. I mean, I see people wearing them for golf and things like that, and just the stress levels, the recovery levels,
yeah,
they're so important and
they are. They
such
are.
an added extra now that, again, it's not a jealousy thing, but if you go back to what my era and our era of playing, imagine having
Yeah.
one of them on your wrist and going, you're a bit tired, and you go, right, I've
Yeah.
got to go to sleep.
Well, we did measure sleep quality and heart rate variability back when we were at Blackburn together. We had those, but it was a big heart rate belt you had to sleep in,
Yeah,
which was
yeah,
really uncomfortable. Do you remember that? You couldn't get
yeah,
into
yeah.
a good sleeping
Oh, it's
position. So
horrible.
so we were
It's
we
like
were
there's
actually
pulling off your chest.
yeah, so we were actually affecting the quality of your sleep by asking you to wear this thing that
Yeah,
monitored the quality of your sleep.
yeah,
And, as technology's gone by, the sensitivity of the measurements and the ability to measure recovery, and the players do that independently. And again, that data just drops on to their app, and it just feeds automatically straight to our database, and we can see it.
So will you use like a Whoop
Yeah,
to look at players?
yeah, absolutely, yeah, and
Oh,
informed
brilliant.
decisions. Yeah, I mean, commercially available wearables. I think sp- professional sport drives a lot of these technologies, and then they become available to the mass market.
Got you.
But the sensitivity and the quality of data that we get from Whoop is. Dare I ask, have you got a Whoop age yet?
How dare you?
Oh,
How
great.
dare you ask
I
me
wonder
that?
how you can't ask somebody that
No,
on an internet.
you've got to wear it for a certain period of time.
Right.
Um, and then it'll gather all your data and it'll work things out. And that is why I'm on a health kick, because I am frightened to death of what age it's going to give me.
Listen, wherever you find your motivation or wherever motivation finds you, I'm perfectly comfortable and
Yeah.
happy with that. That's
Yeah.
brilliant, mate. That's brilliant. He's back. Warney's back. Love
Hey,
it.
hey, and by the way, I haven't done an update on this for a while, but since the first episode, I've still not had a cherry Coke.
Cherry Coke, Kate.
I've not had a fizzy drink, Lammy. Not had a
Right.
fizzy drink, which I'm very
Well,
impressed with.
you've got a trip to the States coming up at some point, and
Yeah,
that may
very
well
soon.
do that. I don't think that'll test you. You've got
No.
more. No, don't let me down. Don't let me down.
It's going to be touch and go, mate. It's going to be touch
Yeah.
and go. Yeah,
So
but going back to that, that's fascinating. That they'll use stuff like a Whoop to find all the data out and things like that. I think
yeah,
that's
it's
amazing.
and that drops straight onto the player's app, and that has got a direct communication with the club's database system, athlete management system that the club use. So, but again, we're only going to touch on this from the perspective of an international coach. It's kind of the same thing in reverse.
Yeah,
We're trying to get that data from the national teams to get into the clubs because we need to know what they're our players. We need to know what they've been doing. But when you're an international coach, you need that data as well from the clubs. But you magnify that by maybe 10 or 11 clubs.
yeah,
So and you will have fitness coaches within those clubs who are very protective about their data and very protective about their strength and conditioning programs. It's my
yeah.
strength and conditioning program. I'm not going to give it to you, but it's your player, and I want to deliver consistency with your player, and that can be problematic. And then we're looking at the minutes that they've played for the clubs, and it's kind of why is he getting 90 minutes there? Come on, sub him off. And it's what shape are they going to get into? Because we've got a game on Wednesday and it's Saturday, and there's it's the same in reverse that we're looking at the clubs when you're an international or a coach for a national team, and you have the same anxieties and you have the same problems, but it's so that flow of information and data has got to go both ways.
Do you know when you're in a national team? Then are you sort of called upon to make a decision as to who get called up on what they're doing data wise and how fit they are, or does that not even come into it?
No, it doesn't come into it. Not in my experience. There's no experience. When I was with the national team, I did a full audit of the league in terms of looking at what physical outputs were, and what our players were doing because we had access to that data.
So
So
you were in China, weren't you? Just to give the
yeah,
viewers
so
and
I
listeners.
was fitness coach for the Chinese men's national team. Um, and so again, my experiences there were were coloured a little bit by the fact that it was during COVID, so that was a
Yeah,
bit of a challenge. And the league shut down for a while, and then it came back, and it was in a bubble. So monitoring these players as they played games and within the bubble before they got called into the national team, it was it was interesting to me, and looking at what they were doing, and again trying to reach out to clubs, many of whom would have Chinese fitness coaches, but many of them didn't. Many of them were they went with Rafa Benitez was out there at the time, and there were a number of foreign coaches who'd brought all of their staff with them. So trying to reach out to them, and they
yeah,
getting that information, it was patchy. It was patchy at best, and it's kind of like that with from the club perspective. Certain national teams are very good at sending data. Many of them are not. It can be the big gaps in communication.
yeah.
Big.
Yeah. So were predominantly most of your players in the league or in the Chinese league?
Yeah, we had one who played in Spain. Wu Lei played for Espanyol.
So how did you look at it from his point of view of travel and things like that when he was? Because I'm guessing if you were based in China and he's coming in from Europe, how did you treat him differently to how you treated other players then?
Yeah, I mean it's kind of the same in reverse. So my experiences of working in a club and having an international coming back to the club, and it's the same thing. You do the fatigue assessment, you do the tests, you get the medical team will look at him. He'll do a post travel recovery session, very simple. Get him in the pool, get him moving, get him stretching off, get a massage into him, have a look at his sleep, have a look at where he's travelled from. But he's the best player, so he's going to play. And
Yeah.
I'm not going to go to the manager and say, "Oh, you should maybe give him." He's been brought into camp for a reason. He's going to play. So it's you've got to try and minimize the collateral damage that's associated with him coming from Spain into China.
Yeah. So going back to the club side of things on an international basis, I've got to be careful how I ask you this because it's the integrity of maybe a manager or something like that. But you're, have you ever been in a room where a manager's saying we can't let him go, or I don't want him to go, where he's going on international duty, and it's an element of can we pull him out in some way? Is there anything that's happened in your career like that?
I think that those sort of conversations are always happening, aren't they? There's always we need to protect this player a little bit, and we could do without him going. I think those conversations in real life do happen. You can't pull a player out, and very much. But um, I'll I'll throw that question back at you really a little bit. Have you in within the coaching group? Yes, I would think those. Oh, is he been called up? And I've never known it. I've never been candidly aware or openly aware of a manager going to a player and saying you need to withdraw from this squad. And there are guardrails in place from the national team perspective that stop those happening because the player still has to report and be assessed by the
Of course.
medical staff there, and that's that's something that's happened. I think we're probably both aware of players who have withdrawn from squads with spurious reasons. Bad back was always the one, wasn't there?
Oh,
You can't
classic.
prove a
Can't prove it.
bad back.
That was the
So
easiest one.
so I'll throw that question back at you. Have you ever had those conversations in the changing room with players who've gone, I'm going to pull out?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, I think there's elements where there's a there's a certain period in the season where players are fatigued and they think I could do with 4 or 5 days off, and I could do with a period of time away from the training ground, away from the pitch. Don't want to. I think more so players who know they're not going to play,
Yeah,
and that's one of the biggest issues. So I was always a player in the international setup where I was never going to play. I had the best left back in world football in front of me, Ashley Cole. I was
Yeah.
never going to play. I needed Ash to be injured or just one of them where it was like, right, he's played enough football now, let's get him off. But Ash was never fatigued. He was always just super fit, super dedicated, and an incredible player.
Yeah.
But there was always that element where I was hungry for more caps. So even getting on for 2-3 minutes, being away for 2 weeks was worth it because you wanted more time. Never got it, but there was always that hope, and it's the hope that kills you, isn't it?
Yeah.
So from that point of view, it's difficult, and from my point of view, it was always difficult having young kids and knowing that there was a period of 10 days to 2 weeks where you were going to be away from home or in and around that period where
Yeah.
it's a lot of training, but one of the best feelings ever to be called up to your national team. And even though you weren't playing, it was to be involved in and around those players, because as soon as you fall out of that, your confidence starts to drop a little bit because you think, oh, I'm not one of those players anymore. I'm not in that bracket of the best players in the country at the time. So,
Yeah.
and also as well, you don't want a reputation of being someone who drops out of squads. I never dropped out of the squad. I mean, like I said to you in a
It was
previous
never
episode,
in you. It was never in
no,
you to do that. No.
no, I wouldn't,
Yeah.
unless it was, yeah, I don't even know a reason why, but
Did you ever have a member of staff come to you and say maybe you shouldn't go, you're not gonna play, take the rest? Did you
uh,
ever have that?
no, off the top of my head, no.
Yeah.
I think there was always conversations within the change room. I think a lot of it is bravado. I think
Yeah.
there's a lot of like, oh, I can't be arsed going on this one. Like, I'd rather be at home. But
Yeah.
deep down, when they get there, it's enjoyable.
Yeah.
But I think there is an element where when lads aren't called up and they're sat on a sun lounger, they are thinking to themselves, I think I'm doing all right here.
Well, you
I'm
do.
happy with this situation. I'm quite happy to be recovering as long as you do get the break. And that was one of the things I was going to talk about then, was just the time off in international breaks and how you manage that, because sometimes you can get too much and sometimes you can get too little, where it's almost, you can get caught between a rock and a hard place, because you're thinking, well, you haven't really give us much, but we need something.
Yeah. I mean, that's the second thread of this conversation, is what you do with the players that are left behind, don't you? But sort of before I start sort of describing that, I'm interested to know, because, you know, growing up as a kid and wanting to be a player, you've been an England player, you've been there, and in camps, what was it like? Just like, what was it like for you? What are your experiences of being in camp? And you know, you've sort of touched on it that you enjoyed it, but did it feel special? How did you sort of integrate with players from other teams? And
I was
what
lucky.
was it like?
Yeah, my first squads were when I was at Liverpool, and I got called up, and probably a bit of a surprise call up, and we played Man United at home and we drew 0-0. But then I wasn't in the squad originally. Came into training on the Monday morning, got called up to the office by Rafa Benitez, who said, you're not training this morning. You've been called up by England. And that was my first squad that I got called up into, was a surprise one. And it was Sven-Goran Eriksson. So everyone else had sort of arrived before I got there. So I was a little bit of a late addition. But I remember I was dead lucky. I walked into the canteen, if you like, or the dining room when we were having food. And as I walked in, we had Sammy Lee, Sven-Goran Eriksson, and Ray Clements, the late Ray Clements, were there. And Phil Neville was there. Now, Phil was an Everton player at the time, or Man United or Everton. I think he might have been Everton anyway.
Uh-huh.
Now, I hated Phil Neville growing up. I was a Liverpool fan. Hated him and Gary. Hated Man United players. Couldn't stand them because I'd grown up a fan.
Yeah.
First thing he did was put his arm round me and shouted at Sven, what took you so fucking long to call him up?
Brilliant.
And straight away I was like, how good's that?
Yeah,
I
brilliant.
felt 10 feet tall. And I was like, it was almost like, that's your acceptance, you're in.
Yeah.
And it was like one of the nicest things I've ever had from a player to me, where I just felt part of it straight away. And I thought, Wow, that's amazing. So I felt part of it then, but the other side of it, when you get on the pitch, it's just like next level. And
Yeah,
I'll openly admit, I was intimidated by it because I was like, "Holy shit, like, this level is ridiculous."
yeah,
And sometimes you have to look back and go, "Well, there's a reason you're here." Again, and I know it's something that we're gonna talk about in the future, is psychology of the game. I
yeah,
wish I had a psychologist. I wish I could have spoke to someone at that point just to reassure me that, yeah, you do belong and there's a reason you're here and things like that. But listen, it's going away with your country is just the best feeling to think that you're in that company.
yeah,
Yeah, so but I listen, I always look back fondly of, like, a World Cup, and I'll always look at a World Cup and say, everyone will go, "Yeah, but you never played in it." I was like, "Yeah, but I was front row seat to team talks, tactics,
yeah,
actual game day experiences, what goes on." It was phenomenal. It was one of the best things. It was one of the hardest times. And just going back to international breaks, that's the hard part, is the long days.
yeah,
Whereas I think that's evolved now. I think it's got better. We used to just sit in our rooms. We used to
yeah.
just, like, watch DVDs because we didn't have Netflix and things like that. You would literally have a DVD player. You'd watch a DVD of a film,
Finger
or
used to
you
sort you out.
yeah, yeah. And,
Yeah,
so we'd watch things like that, so but the days were quite long. But
yeah,
once I've been in a few times, you get to know the lads, and you'd sit round and have a drink or something like that, like a coffee or a water or whatever. But the weeks are long.
yeah.
They are grueling. They can
I
be
think,
very tough, and that's where, again, keeping the players entertained is vitally important.
yeah, putting a games room in and all of that sort of
Yeah,
stuff and what have you. I mean,
absolutely.
I think, one of the things that we probably didn't do a, as good a job as we could have done as working within clubs is recognizing that emotional impact, because it's a quick turnaround. We get the players back from international duty on Wednesday. They're training Thursday, Friday, and I'm going to come on to that. There's an interesting sort of story for this weekend coming. We have to adjust our training schedules very, very quickly based on the data that we're getting around the players. We'll have
Yeah,
some players who, like I said, if we have McAllister, for example, at Liverpool, didn't play. Now he's played for Liverpool, so he's not going to detrain, but he didn't play for Argentina in the first game. So, we've got players coming back at different statuses. Some might need a little bit of a physical top up. Some of
yeah.
them might need extended recovery. Do you remember the bullseye we used to use at Blackburn, where we used to monitor your players' minutes? It was kind of
Yeah,
concentric circles, and the nearer you got to the centre, the more we needed to really emphasize recovery. So it's just to explain, it was 5 rings with each ring representing a game minutes, 90-minute game. So if you were within the center, you'd played every minute of every game, and within that, then the emphasis was towards recovery and regeneration, wasn't it? The next 2 sort of rings were maintenance. You'd had plenty of game minutes, but you weren't overloaded. And then towards the outer ring, you hadn't played hardly any minutes, so the emphasis then was very much on topping up the fitness, and it might be you need to play resi games. So monitoring that, making sure the international minutes go into that bullseye
yeah,
was an important thing. But one of the things we didn't do well because of that turnaround, I don't think we took into account the emotional effect of playing for your country and representing your country, and how players felt about that, and if they got disappointing results, because we're now in World Cup qualification, aren't we?
yeah, yeah,
So players that, we have to consider mental recovery as much as we only really considered physical recovery. I don't think we did a good enough job, or are doing a good enough job, on the mental recovery. And a moment that sticks in my mind from experience was when the Irish players played that game
Oh,
against
yeah,
France,
against
and
France.
Thierry
Yeah.
Henry handled the ball. They went out, and other fitness coaches within that, have any of your Irish players reported back? Because a couple of them went missing,
Yeah.
rightly so. rightly so, you know, trying to where's he at? Track him down. He hasn't reported back on when he's supposed to have reported back. They've just been knocked out of the World Cup. Chance of a lifetime. All of the things that you just
100%.
spoke about in the most unfortunate sort of circumstances. It's something that I think that as time goes on, I became more aware of. You know, as addressing the emotional,
It's
not just the
huge.
mental aspect, but the emotional side of it that goes with representing your country. Players love playing for the country by and
Yeah.
large. We've only talked about it in the challenges, but it's great, isn't it? I
Yeah.
want my players to play for the country. I want them to be the best players. I want them to go and experience
Of
these
course,
things.
yeah.
That's what we're in it for. But
Yeah. I think
there's
there's another side to it as well, though, that you like we often you talk about emotional and you talk about physical, but also confidence.
yeah,
So you might get players who go away, and because those relationships with players in and around them are different, they play a different game. So people often talk about why is it so hard to play international football? You've got so many different styles of tactics coming in, but you've also got different elements of fitness that are needed for different styles of play.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
sometimes that impacts players' performances hugely. I mean, I've been listening to sort of debates over the weekend about why England didn't hammer, was it Andorra?
yeah,
Like, and you go, well, hang about, Man United couldn't beat Grimsby.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
it's football is a very, very difficult game. People think it's black and white and so simple and, well, your players are better than them. It doesn't matter. Try
yeah,
and beat 11 players who sit behind a ball. Very difficult. But also try and do that with a group of players who are essentially they know each other, but they're used to different styles of football. And that's very difficult to try and achieve. So sometimes you're gonna get a group of players who actually and we'll take Liverpool, for instance, because only because 'cause they're top of the league, no other reason, but they are high as a kite, can't wait to play the next game. However, they go away, international football, some of them lose games, and they come back and they might have dipped in confidence, and Arne Slot's going, "Hang about, when you left, you were buzzing, couldn't wait to play your next game, and suddenly there's that element of doubt creeps in about not
yeah.
having a great performance, and so much goes on behind the scenes that people don't realize. And that's where, again, I think the psychologists play a huge part in the game and also the staff as well.
Yeah, I mean, on the staffing one, I mean, you're dead right, and we've spoken a little bit in previous podcasts about that importance of style of play and tactics, and players from a physical perspective being adapted to that way of playing, and the dangers that that can bring in terms of injury. I'm less concerned about that in international groups because they're only together for a short amount of time, so and they're not really doing the fitness work, are they? They're doing tactical preparation work, but there is within the games a danger that they'll get overloaded, and that's where I think the injury
Oh,
idea can
but
come into.
if rewind that a little bit there. So you're not bothered about the day to day because for me, personally, I need to make sure I'm prepared for a game in the
Yeah.
same way that I'm used to preparing. If I'm not doing a certain amount of work in a training session, I'm thinking, I'm not gonna go into this game properly prepared or
Yes.
properly ready. So there
Yeah.
is an element where you still gotta train at your absolute maximum or to the level that you're used to make sure you're still stressing your body in the right way, knowing that
Yes.
you're
Yeah.
getting ready for the weekend.
You need to expose it to the demands and the stimulus that will make sure that it's prepared. It's that balance between fitness and fatigue, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think that again, you've got in an international setting that you've got the players together for such a short amount of time, and you want to play them in a certain way that the shift is always towards more tactical preparation than physical preparation.
Yeah.
So you're not going to get. I mean, they'll. You tell me about when you were with England teams. Was a lot of it walkthroughs and tactically based, or or was it similar to what you do in the club?
No, there's a mixture of both. It just depends on the style of what you want to achieve and what the fitness coach is also wanting to get out of it. I think
Yeah.
obviously if you watch my training session and you went, you haven't done enough, then you simply come over to me and tell me, and it would be very easy.
Yeah.
Whereas an England coach might go, well, it looks like he's done enough, or on the thing he looks like he's covered enough ground, but
Right.
You might not have. It might be you might know he needs another 10 sprints or another 5 sprints or something
Yeah,
like that.
yeah, based on your
It
profile.
it's knowing your players day to day, isn't it? And I
Yeah,
think
and that
that's one of the and listen, I'm not having a pop at anyone. I'm
no,
saying this is a difficult skill for the
of course it
international
is, yeah. But
setup and
that's why
probably
it's
more so.
that's why it was so important, because of that exact reason why you've just said, for me to send as much data to the national team as I could. So Stephen's Warnock normal profile through the week is this. These are his physical outputs for the previous 4 weeks of training, for the games, all of these things. This is what Warney looks like. And, you're then putting your trust in somebody else to then deliver
Yeah.
similar numbers along that line. But there's another part of that is that you've mentioned there the staff, the change in staff, and often different medical staff and masseurs. You would work with a particular masseur who would know your body really, really
Yeah, yeah.
well. And as soon as after a particular training session, they would start to work on you and they'd say, this feels tighter today than normal. They know when you're working with different staff who don't know your body quite as well, you don't have that. And I know
Yeah.
that John Terry, Frank Lampard would always bring their masseur into the England setup, wouldn't it? Now,
Yeah, yeah.
obviously you can't have every masseur from every club coming into this England setup, but it makes sense, and it physios know
Of course it
how
does.
to do a strap-in for you because
Yeah.
they've done thousands of them, and it's different, and your strap-in's not the same. Loads of little details and points, but we were talking, weren't we, about that fast turnaround. This is an interesting one that I just quickly looked at before we came together. So the first game on Saturday is Arsenal playing Forest.
Yeah.
So I had a quick look. So Arsenal have got 16 players away on international duty. Forest have got 13. Chris Wood is playing in New Zealand. Did you see this?
Yeah.
It's playing in New Zealand, a friendly game against Australia. That's a 24-hour flight.
It's insane.
And they're playing Saturday. So he's not going to get back till Thursday.
No.
And they're playing Saturday at 12:30. Arsenal have got Gabriel, dreams can come true, and Gabriel Martinelli. So Gabriel and Gabriel Martinelli, confusingly, are playing for Brazil against Bolivia, which incidentally is at 13,500 feet of altitude.
Which saps your body anyway.
Well, you know from experience. I'm sure you've experienced this coming when your trips to Utah.
Oh, it's brutal.
It's horrible,
It's
isn't
hard.
it?
Yeah.
It's horrible, and there's no direct flight that I can find. I've tried to sort them out a flight, Warnie, and there's
Oh,
no direct
hey,
flight.
don't you worry on that. They'll be on a private jet,
Oh,
mate.
of course they'll be in a private jet, but just trying to get, so it's 12 to 14-hour flight. I should imagine that a number of the Brazilian players that are playing the Premier League will come back on the same flight. I should think Alisson will probably he's playing in the same game, isn't he? So he'll be coming back. But, and then how do you turn that round? How do you assess these players?
Well, interestingly, just to jump in on that, I don't know if you remember, but last year when Liverpool got beat for the first time at home against Nottingham Forest, it came after an international break. And Luis Diaz, who's now departed the club, playing for Colombia, away in Colombia. And one of the things that Arne Slot looked at was the travel after a game and the physical element of a Premier League game. And basically, he didn't play him again after an international break because I think he knew he couldn't. And I think it was very similar with McAllister as well, where it was an element of, let's see how far they've travelled. And if we can, we won't play them.
Yeah. So McAllister is going to be an interesting one for the weekend. Do they play Monday? Just off the top of my head. Sunday or Monday, I don't know. But McAllister they're playing Venezuela and Ecuador. But the first game, Venezuela, McAllister didn't get any minutes. So as a fitness coach, I'm looking at that and thinking, I've got to balance the travel demands.
Sorry, Liverpool plays Sunday against Burnley.
Sunday, right?
Yeah,
So
I couldn't remember it was Monday or
yeah, I couldn't off the top of my head, but it was so they've got a little bit more time
got the extra
than
day.
than the Arsenal,
Chris
and that
Wood.
extra day makes a difference than the Arsenal
Yeah,
Forest games. All the best with that, by the way. Get ready
yeah.
for Saturday at 12:30.
I know it's absolutely ridiculous, isn't it? I mean, the turnaround is going to be phenomenal, and it's going to
Yeah,
be interesting to see how many of these players are actually fielded, or how many minutes they'll actually play.
yeah.
I don't think it depends on for Gabriel at Arsenal. I'd say it depends on Saliba as well, whether he's fit after coming off against Liverpool. If he's not fit, then he almost has to play.
That
So
that's the
that's one of the things that sometimes can be taken out of a manager's hands as well, isn't it?
yeah. Well,
Obviously, he's still got to get through that game unscathed himself.
yeah. I mean, we spoke, didn't we, in a previous podcast about how injuries affect um, the ability a manager has to spread the load throughout the squad. This is a prime example of that.
Yeah,
You would not want a player who's just played 90 minutes at 14,500 feet and then jumped on a flight 14 hours to then start a game um, at 12:30 2 days later.
yeah.
That quick turnaround it's incredible, isn't it?
I
And
think the other thing as well is like I get fed up of hearing this. Yeah, but they haven't got a game for a week, so you can rest after it. And you go, no, it doesn't matter.
no,
It's not like that at all.
it isn't.
It's like the injury could already happen during that game and have a knock-on effect and pick it up the week after.
Yeah, and Gabriel has had that. I think Arteta came out last year, wasn't it? When he had an injury last year and he was itching to play, and
Yeah,
the advice from the medical staff was under no circumstances is he ready to play.
yeah,
But he's somebody who wants to play every game.
yeah,
He's brilliant that way, but
100%.
sometimes he needs protecting from himself. But what other option have you got? If
No,
you're Arteta, you want to win that game. You want to make sure that you lost the last game going into the national break. That's another thing going into an international break. How your last result can sort of inform the decisions that you make through the international break. Especially with the players that are left behind. You know, uh, you've got Aston Villa's a good example, isn't it? Where they've had a busy transfer window right before the international break. They've
yeah,
brought 3 players in. You've got Lindelof there who hasn't played because he was without a club. Sancho hasn't played because he wasn't playing for Manchester United. Harvey Elliott's come in, hasn't he?
yeah,
And I think he's beyond the under-21s now, is he? I don't think
yeah.
he's
He is. He's beyond
yeah.
it. Yeah,
So you've got these 3 players, and your temptation then is to embed them into the club as quickly as possible. And so that means, we're going to limit time off and we're going to train. So the players that are left behind, I know there's not that I think 11 Aston Villa players on international duty as in this particular break. So you've got a reasonable amount of players left. So the temptation is we've got these 3 players, we need to embed them into our way of playing. So we're going to do a lot of training. And the players that are left are thinking, any chance of a weekend off? Any chance of something?
yeah,
But Aston Villa need to start picking up points, don't they? So it time off. I mean, we're now moving into that other thread of the conversation, the players who are not on international duty. We've talked Liverpool. We've talked a lot about Liverpool, haven't we? You've probably only got Joe Gomez and Curtis Jones who are in the building. So
yeah.
what we're going to do with them?
Well,
Good one.
I actually saw an Everton player in the airport the other day. I won't name
Right.
him but
Well, no, an anonymous Everton player, but
yeah, but
it's
I saw him going on a holiday on Friday morning. Now I'm wondering how long they've got off. I'm guessing it would have been you'll be back in on probably Monday afternoon,
well,
ready to train maybe.
yeah. I mean, the major issue with the players that have not been called up, it's obviously squad fragmentation. You've
Yeah,
got the better teams have got the better players, and they're all internationals, aren't they? But internationals all the way through the Premier League. Every club will be facing that. So you've got a number of players absent. Usually the youngest players I mean, we spoke about Harvey Elliott there, who's probably gone beyond the youth team setup and hasn't
Yeah.
quite got into the senior setup. You've got your injured players who are now coming back to fitness, going through that return to play protocol, and you've got your veteran players as well who've
Yeah.
been there and done it and been international players and are now, probably extending their careers by lowering their load, and they've retired from international. So it limits the work that you can do the squad. The focus kind of becomes maintenance rather than development,
Yeah.
with the idea that, it becomes, and then the players that come back, it's damage control, isn't it? You don't overexpose them too much. And I think the danger there is we train without purpose. We
Yeah.
lose focus
That's
in
very true.
training. And I think that can be a bit dangerous. It's just, it's that, why are we here? It becomes monotonous. Traditionally, I think when you were a player, the way that you would have probably been away on international duty, but traditionally the way that most clubs managed it, and you will have experienced this, I'm sure, is after that game when all of the international players have departed, because they go straight after that game, don't they? Whether it's Sunday, it's like a rummage sale, isn't it? There's black bin bags everywhere with boots.
Yeah. Put your boots in, your
that's
shinies and all that.
The kit man's had to bring about 400 bin bags so that everybody can go away with all of the gear. So yeah, usually, right, we're going to have a couple of days off, and then we'll train Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and we'll give them a long weekend off. Oh, thank you very much. That was traditionally. I think there was a lot of fear from managers at that point that players would get on the piss, and I think that's lessened now. I think that culture's gone largely out of the game, that drinking culture. But the big danger for me was this old school mentality that if they're getting the weekend off, they need to earn their weekend off.
Yeah, so we're going to run them before it.
Yeah, I mean,
I remember that.
I had that with a manager. I had a manager who they need to earn the weekend off. I'm going to run them. There's a run that I always do before the international break. So just to sort of describe how that works, to give them a long weekend off, we would probably come in early on a Friday morning, wouldn't we? So it would be, normally players report at 9 o'clock to start at 10:30. They would report at 9 o'clock to start at 9:05.
Yeah.
And it'd be the biggest microwave session, token gesture largely on the training. And then, we'd be finished at 10:15. But this manager, I've got a run that I always do before they go. Never mind about your GPS and your loading and all that stuff. Just, I'll deal with this. No problem. And of course, we did do a hamstring in that run. And to the manager's sort of credit, he came into the office afterwards and he went, "My fault. That was my fault."
Really?
Yeah. He was really, really good, this particular manager. But he's like, "I've got a run that I always do with the players before they go away for an show. I always do it. And that might have been a superstition thing, I don't know, but I always do it." And he did this run with these players, and oh god, how many more reps?
Nightmare.
2 more reps, and then a veteran older player who we were managing their load anyway did suffer a hamstring injury. And then the biggest danger is the player who gets injured in that one, but kind of styles it out. Yeah, no, I'm fine. I'm not losing my weekend off. No chance. I'm not losing 100%. My weekend off. I'm not reporting that. And then comes in, "Oh yeah, I felt it when I got out of bed this morning on the Monday morning, didn't it?" So,
well, that's the thing, is players were always getting prepared for a trip away, so flights had to be booked to make things like that.
Family.
I mean, but I think it's massively different now because the players are paid so much differently. Yeah. They're all on private flights, so we used to have to book an EasyJet flight to Spain or to Ibiza or something like that. And often you couldn't get a flight, and it was like, it ruined your weekend because you were, if you didn't have to come in on that Friday morning, you could get the early morning flight on a Friday, and then you could almost have 3 days decent holiday of a trip. But then you were like, well, I can't be bothered going on the Saturday morning because it's eating into me Saturday. It was all a bit odd. But I remember one when I went away to Spain and I had to be back in the afternoon. Typical on an EasyJet flight, delayed. And
Oh,
I'm like, shit, I'm gonna miss training here. And like I am the world's like most regimented for timekeeping. I hate people who are late for things. So me
right,
being late, I'm sat in the airport. I am anxious as hell. Anyway, get on the flight, and I'm thinking, got a chance of making it here. And the pilot recognized me as I got on. So he's like, "Oh, have you had a nice weekend?" So I was like, "Yeah." I said, "I'm in training in like 4 hours or something like that." I said, "This delay's done me no favors." I went, "You couldn't do a favor, could you? Put your foot down." And he was like laughing about it, but he actually went, "Oh, you'll be fine. We've got a tailwind. We'll make the time up and stuff like that." Well,
brilliant.
I landed in Manchester Airport, shot into training like as quick as I could get in, got in by the skin of my teeth, but it was the worst feeling because I just don't like being late for anything.
Yeah,
And my thing always is as well is, and you'll know this, one player can ruin it for everyone. So if I'd have come in late, it'd have been like, well, you're not fucking doing that again. Like you
yeah,
can't even get back in on time. Whereas
yeah.
you try and squeeze every last ounce out of that time
Of
off
course you do.
because you're thinking, I'm not going to have time off again for another month until
Yeah,
the international break. Now everyone will be going, hang about, you don't need time off. Doing the same thing day in, day out, you do need that time to
it,
recover and just to
absolutely.
step away from the training ground to get out of other people's sort of lives as well. But yeah, I'll
Freshen up.
never
I mean,
forget that one.
I mean, what is that Friday morning like
Ah,
after that? It's like the
it's
start of the Le Mans
pointless.
24 hour. You've got, but at the end of it,
Oh,
I
at
think,
the end.
oh, it's like people sprinting to the cars. High speed running. We should have had the GPS on them. Players sprinting to the cars to get to the airport. It
Yeah,
was like wacky races, wasn't it? It's like the end of the Italian job. There's just cars everywhere.
brilliant.
And it's,
Yeah,
and of course, people forget we've spoken on previous podcasts where we've spoken about the amount of time that players will have been together because they've been on tour in the
yeah,
summer,
yeah.
the pre-season tours, and staff as well. Staff have been, they need freshening up.
Of course they
If you're
do.
in each other's face, and don't forget, you get these 3 international breaks: September, October, November, don't you? Um, and then you're with each other till March. So this is the last real opportunity you get to
Yeah,
spend some quality time with the family. And now I think that long weekend element has sort of drifted away, and now players are getting, after that last game before the international break, players are getting 4, 5, 6 days off
yeah,
with the blessing of the manager. The senior players will have gone to the manager weeks earlier and said, what's the plan for international break?
yeah,
Because exactly what you said, some of them might need to pull the kids out of school for a couple of days because they're going to go to Spain. They're going to go here, there, and everywhere. And players are much more, managers are much more relaxed now about trusting players. And that's another aspect. That's why international breaks are a pain in the arse. Right, we've got to now give these players programs and GPS, and you've got, here's your program. I want you to do this on this day. I want you to do. Have you got access to a pitch? Right, you've got to do 45 minutes. This is your physical. No, I'll do a treadmill run. I won't have a
yeah,
pitch because I'm here. Right, okay. Well, we need to figure out, because you do need to maintain your fitness over this time. Enjoy your
yeah,
break and have that mental rest, but you can't do nothing. And what we're seeing increasingly, and this is another conversation episode we're going to have in the future, players are going away and working with private fitness coaches
yeah,
for a couple of sessions. You know what I mean? Which is, with certain clubs are having problems with that, aren't they?
yeah,
I worked
yeah.
with a player last week. I had a player come into LA, and I did a couple of sessions with him, and that was all in communication with the team, I hasten to add. So, all of that. But yeah, that time off it's a balancing act, isn't it? It's a
Oh,
balancing
massively.
act.
Yeah.
I think that, you tell me, if players get too much time off, it can appear unprofessional, and if they get too little time off,
Yeah. It is. It's the squeeze, isn't it? I think there's an
yeah,
element of sometimes depending on what international break it is. So November and March, predominantly players wanted to go to Dubai because it was warm. So you need long enough to be able to fly and make it worth your while and get 3 or 4 days out there, or 4 or 5 days. But there is an element where you do feel I'm losing a bit of fitness, but also as well, mentally you switch off. And that's a nice thing, but you almost don't want to switch off like you're going into a summer holiday. So that's the fine balance from a player's perspective, is making sure that you just don't go, quite enjoying this. I could stay if like you need to make sure that, right, when I get back, I'm fully focused on the job at hand.
Yeah.
But right, I think we'll call it a day there, Lammy. Which has been really, really insightful from your point of view as to what goes on behind the scenes, both club-wise and international-wise for the international breaks. And hopefully it's give a little bit of an insight as to people, the viewers, the listeners, as to what they actually learn about this and what they probably didn't understand about it. So, this has been another episode of Strain on the Game. Please follow, subscribe, like on all socials. We are on YouTube as well. And just to sort of reaffirm how much, if you can subscribe to the platforms, it does go a long way in helping us grow as a podcast. And that's been another episode of Strain on the Game. Follow us on social media and YouTube at Strain on the Game. Subscribe, like, and follow.